Hey, this is Marjorie Wildcraft, and on this edition of TGN on the Road, we're going to show you how to flip chickens for fun and profit. All right, I'm here with John Livingston in Central Texas. And John, can you tell folks a little bit about you, like what you do for a living, and other than flipping chickens, of course?
Right. Well, my day job is an accountant. I work in the commercial real estate industry. And a few years ago, they said, you know, we could use your space to create a conference room. And I said, where will I work? And they said, well, we thought you would like to work from home.
You would like to go home,
and
right?
I said, that's great. So I started looking for a little farm.
Okay. What a great way to get, but you're still doing that work now, right?
I do that work, and
but you got a remote job. That's pretty cool.
I have a remote job. I go into the office maybe twice a week. But that also gives me not only the opportunity to get my laundry done, but also do some farming and things like flipping chickens.
Flipping chickens. So how long have you been here on this land? We're in Central Texas in an area called the Sandhills. Beautiful, beautiful region. But how long have you been here? And
3 years, just over 3 years now.
So not too long, but you've really developed a little business.
Yeah.
And was there some precipitating event that you said, wow, I want to start, raising these chickens and growing more of my own food? Or was it just a dream you'd always had? Or did you grow up knowing how to do this? Or
I was a beekeeper. And I had a hive at my house in the city, an urban hive, but I also had a handful of hives at a organic feed mill and chicken farm in Elgin. The guy who ran that, Jeremiah, said, well, I would like to have some bees. And I said, great. And I was out there on like a Wednesday afternoon working on beehives. And he said, John, come in and have some tea. And I went in and he sat me down at his big kitchen table and he said, you need to be working outside. He said, you shouldn't be doing accounting work downtown. You should be working outside. And not only did that inspire me, but seeing him and his operation made it obtainable.
Oh, so you saw somebody else living this lifestyle and said, wow, I think I could do that.
I could do that.
Yeah,
cool. It's like, it's not impossible. It's not that far out.
Kind of like this video we're making now for other folks, showing them that they could do this.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
I hope that it leads to that. That kind of led me to come out here and try some agricultural things and chickens, and it all starts with chickens and then some goats and that kind of stuff.
Are the gateway.
But they really are.
The gateway, what do we call that? It's not a gateway drug, it's the gateway agricultural product.
Yes, the gateway product for small producers.
How did you get into flipping chickens then specifically? So, flipping, by the way, flipping chickens is not like the spatula in the frying pan.
Nor gymnastics of any
gymnastics,
kind.
Right. Yeah. Oh my gosh, I'm having a visual on that. Okay.
Flipping chickens is buying chickens that have been hatched somewhere else. Day-old chickens, usually mail-ordered, although, there are some great farms where I've gotten chickens.
A little bit older.
There are people who sell day-old chicks, and they're not that hard to find. You buy these birds, you raise them to laying age, and then you sell them, hopefully for a profit.
So if I can summarize this a little bit, it's like, so if you want a laying flock in your backyard, usually you only want 4, 5, 6, 8 birds, right? But buying them from a hatchery, they only want to send you a minimum of 25, if not 50 or 100. So
exactly.
And then you'd have to raise up all of those birds, which takes 5 or 6 months before they get to laying age, and then you've got way too many extra birds. So actually there is this really nice little niche business for small producers to go ahead and pick up those 50 birds, raise them up, and then sell them off into the local community. And that's what you're talking about.
Exactly, because
Yeah.
your average backyard chicken keeper doesn't have this much space, nor do they necessarily have the time
Yeah.
to raise chickens. Or maybe, like me, when I first started, you just need a starter flock. You need half a dozen birds just to get started and have some eggs. And that's just it. You know, the hatcheries, it's usually to avoid extra charges, and sometimes they won't even ship them unless you can order a couple dozen birds, especially in the wintertime because it keeps them warm and they're in the mail system.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about your operation. Let's start
Okay.
all the way from, you get your little chicks and how you raise them up, and then all the way into the sales and marketing part, right? Which is important, right?
Yes.
So you get your little babies in, and I've done this many times. You get a flat from the post office. They come in a box, and they ship it. Like, and is that the way you typically get it? You typically get them, or
most of the time. Although, like I said, I have found a few people, especially local breeders, harder to find breeds that. It's good to also, if you're going to breed chickens yourself eventually, start varying your genetics.
right? And at this point in time, you're not breeding them, but is that something you aspire to?
We hope to next year start hatching some chickens. I have a couple breeds that I've been working on building my genetics and getting chickens from different hatcheries, and so that they're not all related.
I know that's a big thing with Joel Salatin and a lot of the chicken community is like breeding varieties of chickens that are real specific, like they lay real well, they have a good demeanor, they're kind of smart but not too smart.
Certain color eggs.
So, yeah. But so those chicks come in, and then here, I guess this is your brooder area. This is a little area that you've got them in that they come into first.
We do. We have what used to be a tack room in a stable where they would keep equipment, and it was not very difficult to put in some hardware cloth walls and create a couple of spaces so that you can have different age groups of chickens. There's, they start in a smaller area with a brooder. I like the brooders that are they're little rectangular boxes that are kind of close to the ground. We jokingly call them the wire mommy.
The big wire hen.
The alternative would be like a heat lamp, which is a little bit more dangerous and uses a lot of electricity. And
well, basically, we need to keep these chicks at about 90, 95 degrees for the first couple of weeks. They need to be warm. And so you've got this little setup here for them for that. About how long do they stay in this little area here?
Until they're 6 to 10 weeks old, depending on how many birds and how much room they're taking up. If they're not taking up a lot of room, then they might stay a little longer. But if there's just too many birds and they need more space, and it becomes a health issue, then I open them up.
Well, let's talk about the space here. I mean, this looks like it's like a 4x8 space or so.
That's exactly right.
About what it is.
Yeah.
And how many chicks have you found is a real comfortable amount to put in here?
I can get up to about 4 dozen in there comfortably, but they'll move out pretty quickly into the bigger space.
Okay, close to 50 of them, but you get them up to where they're a little bit of a good size before you move them into the next.
Right.
And feed, you're just buying a local good organic feed or non-GMO, non-soy?
I do. That's definitely one way to get your margin up a little bit is to buy in bulk. Because I have a flock, because I have the little ones, it's very easy for me to get to the 1,000-pound threshold that gets me the best discount at the feed mill.
So when you go buy 1,000 pounds from the feed mill, they're like, okay, we're shaving off.
They come in 330-pound barrels.
Oh, wow.
And I try to make sure that I have enough to get me through so that everybody runs out at the same time and I can go get another 1,000 pounds of feed.
Now, do you find it really important to the end user who you're selling to get a higher markup if you say, hey, these guys all had good feed, or are you finding that the buyers care whether the chicks had organic feed or not?
Some do and some don't. Okay. A lot of backyard chicken keepers do.
So we've got these baby chicks.
Yeah.
You're feeding them some pretty good feed. You're buying it in 1,000-pound, half-ton bulk to reduce costs a little bit. and they're in this little area for a while until they become like adolescents or teenagers, and then you move them over to the next area that you've got
And
there
then
for
they,
them?
then they have another area which has an automatic door that also gives them space to the outside. And at that point, I try to give them, you know, almost a foot of space per bird.
And so you've got these 50 birds in here. They've got this inside area with their roosts, and they've got the door to the outside, and then this outside pen is completely enclosed, even from the top. So what are the main predators that you have to worry about here?
Well, my biggest predator, and originally the door just opened to the outside, and all these chickens in the morning, they would just spill out into the yard behind my stable.
You didn't have the whole fencing in place.
No,
Yeah.
and I would start losing a bird a day when the hawks would come through on their migration.
The red-tailed hawks. Yeah.
They love chickens.
Everybody loves chicken. Isn't it amazing? Yeah.
So I put a big 10 by 10 dog run up against the stable, and it has a sun cloth on top, and that stops the birds.
That stops the birds.
I don't really have a lot of other predators back there because I have 3 miniature donkeys.
I was going to say,
that are guard donkeys.
Guard donkeys. And you were saying that the guard donkeys are actually a tax write-off?
It's kind of a running joke around here, but my tax accountant made me convince him that the donkeys were a tax write-off, that I could write off their feed and veterinary. But the truth is, in that yard, I have never lost a chicken to a fox or a raccoon or coyote even, because those donkeys just, they stay around that stable because that's where they eat, and none of the other critters come anywhere near them.
Now that's a lot of people do use donkeys, especially they're known for being able to keep coyotes off, and so that's, it's a totally viable method. I like to use dogs, but that totally works. But so we've got the chickens, and they're half grown.
Yeah.
And you've got them in that yard for a while.
Right, and they usually finish there, and then when I start seeing eggs, that's when I start to make the decision, is this chicken for sale, or is it going to become part of my own flock? Because the whole reason that I got into it was to refresh my flock. Also to experiment with breeds. So also, how crowded is the space?
It starts as they get bigger. Yeah.
Once they get to 12 weeks old, they're pretty good sized birds. Some chickens are grown at that point.
Well, most chickens are harvestable for meat at that age,
Yeah.
although you're raising these guys for egg layers. And what age are most breeds going to be ready to start laying eggs? That's going to be about 4 or 5 months? Is that when you can start?
A lot of it depends on the breed, sometimes the specific bird, but I found that usually around 25 weeks, most of them will start laying.
Okay. So 25 weeks is months.
6 months.
6 months,
Yeah.
okay. Great. Now, so you've got the birds, and how do you, just because you create something, how do you market and sell these guys?
Word of mouth.
Word of mouth.
Is the best. Most of my birds go to clients. Believe it or not, I have chicken clients. I have
Chicken
people
clients.
that call me. Sometimes now even people requesting specific breeds. Like, will you raise some Polish crested? And I say sure,
really
because
want these.
yeah, they
How
can't
did it
find
start
them
though,
anywhere.
though? Now I get it word of mouth, and you've got a list, a client list. But how did it get started?
It starts with Craigslist. Is a great place. That is a lot of work though. You're going to get a lot of emails. People are going to say, hey, I'm looking for Wyandottes, I'm looking for Brahmas, I'm looking for Marans. Do you have any of these birds? From Craigslist, I do some monthly farmers markets, producers markets.
Okay.
Some of them won't let you bring live birds, some of them will. If I can't bring live birds, I bring lots of pictures and organic feed in 20-pound bags, kind of lure people to my booth and give them something that they can buy.
So are you getting known as the Chicken Man?
I don't know. Yeah, in some places I think I have
Chicken Man John.
have gotten known as the chicken guy. Will the chicken guy be
The chicken guy.
there?
Yeah, I like that better. Yeah.
I don't sell very many birds at those markets.
It's
But
mostly making the connections.
it's the connections. Everybody takes a card, and some of those people do call you back.
Do you collect their names and addresses and stay in touch with them at all, or is that not a step that you found needed yet?
I don't do that as much as I should. I think that's a
Be
great
good
idea,
suggestion. Yeah.
especially for the people who don't call you.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and it could be as simple as asking somebody and making a note. You know, oh, you're going to build a coop. When do you think you'll have that coop ready? I'll give you a call.
You went to a Montessori school?
So yeah,
You sell
so
chickens to Montessori?
often sell to Montessori schools. I went to a Montessori school, and we had chickens. So for me, that's kind of fun to see it turn
Coming
full
back.
circle.
You know, my kids went to a Montessori, and that was so great. They had
Yeah.
the chickens there, and it was a part of the whole educational process. So that's a
Yeah.
good market also then as schools.
It is. In addition to backyard chicken keepers, Montessori schools, I have a ranch that's a foster home to a bunch of kids.
As another way to...
And they actually found me on Craigslist.
Now let's get into some numbers. So
Okay.
like baby chicks cost $1, $1.50, or $2 depending on the breed.
Well, I usually raise heritage breeds, and they usually start at $3 to $4.
Oh, the prices of chickens have gone up since I've been thinking about
Well,
that.
it also depends on the hatcheries. You know,
Yeah.
and there are some hatcheries where I do think I get a little bit better deal, or a better bird, at least a better value.
So you've got that much into them, and then you're going to have feed. I guess what is the biggest expense? I would assume it's feed.
Feed is the biggest expense,
Right.
if you don't count time.
Right. We don't count time.
No.
We don't. Let's just not do that.
I know. But that aside, there are ways that you can kind of account for time and make a little bit of difference. One of them is volunteers and interns if you have space.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the woofing program.
The woofing
There's lots of
program
ways to
is
find
a
folks
great
that want
way.
to help out.
That does cut down on the labor a little bit. But feed is probably the largest at, just over 50 cents a pound. It costs, $5, maybe a few more dollars.
How much are you going to
bird.
be $5 a bird? You're
Yeah.
saying so maybe $6 a bird is what the feed
Yeah.
that you're putting in. The bird itself was $3 or $4, so it sounds like we're up to about $10 now.
Yeah. Also, when you sell them, if you can get somebody who doesn't necessarily need a bird that's already laying.
But like a month or two will be laying, then you can save on that feed.
Exactly.
Yeah. A month of feed is,
Exactly.
$1 or so, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah. And we call it chicken feed, but when you're in the chicken business, it's actually a big deal.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, it is a big deal.
So you may have a total of $10 into these birds, not really counting your infrastructure costs, but just the direct expenses,
Yeah.
let's say. And then how much can you sell a laying hen for? Now, by the way, bear in mind that we're outside of Austin, so that's the market you're
Right.
selling
And
into.
there are a lot of backyard chicken keepers looking on Craigslist
big
for
movement.
Wyandottes and Cochins and Marans and Orpingtons, Americanas. People love the blue laying eggs. An Americana, $20 to $25. A Maran, which, like a black copper Maran that lays a beautiful dark chocolate colored egg, maybe $30.
Right,
But that chick is going to cost you more.
right. So it's not a huge profit center, but it's a lot of fun, and you are making some money on it. You're connected
Right.
with a whole bunch of the community, and you're providing a really valuable service to the community. Plus, you're continually regenerating your flock.
Exactly.
So it sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah, and paying for my own flock's expenses.
So let's talk a little bit about breeds. Have you found, you're watching the market, you're watching the Craigslist, you're listening to your customer base. How do you decide what breed to use?
Yes,
You've mentioned earlier that some people say, hey, can you custom grow me a flock of, Windettes or whatever,
Yeah.
Silkies. But in general, how do you make that choice?
Well, I have a few favorites, and I start there. Sometimes that's convincing the customer that.
Oh, these are your personal favorites. You say, I love
Right.
these, I'm going to grow these, and I'm going to sell them to somebody, right?
Exactly.
Okay,
and,
I
and
got
I'm
it.
going to convince you that this is the chicken
This
you
is
want.
the breed you
don't-
want,
yeah.
right, yeah.
There's a little bit of that, and I do kind of keep an eye on Craigslist. What are people looking for? I do raise specific breeds for some people. I think almost any heritage breed is
It's
going to be a good bet. And again, colored eggs. People, especially backyard chicken
So have you
keepers.
ever done packages like, I'll sell you these 6 birds and you're going to get blue, brown, white, and pink eggs or whatever, and come with the rainbow flock, have you done any marketing spin like that?
I haven't. I have done packages where people can buy 20-pound bag of organic feed and a chicken. So maybe a $5 discount if they buy both at the same time.
Do you have any rough idea of how much this is netting you in a year, or do you not want to think about that?
I can tell you the gross number, the net number is hard to calculate because again, it's a lot of the money is going back into my own flock.
Right.
The goal would be for the whole chicken operation itself to at least break even. Gross wise, it's really easy to make a few $1,000s a year selling, flipping chickens.
So now, one of the things that's immeasurable in this is just like, John just loves doing this, and you can see that he loves it, and he's having a ball with it. So that's one of the intangibles that you get out of it, is the satisfaction and being outside, beautiful. But I heard that, one of the requirements from the IRS, or whether you're a hobby farmer or whether you're a real farmer or whatever they think of,
right?
They had like these 9 questions.
I have this very careful tax accountant, and we have a little farm business set up to separate the farm from our personal.
Yeah.
And of course, he says, well, you've got to be careful because you don't want to be downgraded to a hobby farm.
Right.
You want to be a real farm. And he has these 9 questions, these parameters that apparently the IRS sort of uses to decide whether or not you're a hobby farm. And one of them is, do you derive any enjoyment from your farm activities?
Doesn't that say a lot about how the IRS thinks that we should be working?
So I guess if you don't like it, you're a real farm.
Right.
So
whenever the accountant comes by, you're like, these chickens, yeah, right.
I try to look really worn out and miserable whenever I talk to my accountant.
Do you have any advice for somebody who doesn't have a laying flock yet, and they're wanting to get one? Like, what size would you recommend, or what advice do you recommend for folks wanting to get a laying flock?
For like a backyard flock?
Yeah, just a small.
Start with a coop. Make
sure you've got the housing in place. Good point.
Yeah.
Yep.
Get a book about chicken health.
Anyone you'd recommend?
I think it's called the Chicken Health Handbook.
That's a pretty good name.
Yeah, and it's got a really good index. It's all about the index.
The index. Absolutely
you look
right.
for eye, mouth, wings, feet, and go from there.
I don't have that, but I'm going to add that one to my library.
It's a
good one.
Yeah. It's where I go when people call me and say, "What's wrong with my chicken?"
You're right. Hang on a second.
Get a coop, get your supplies, and look at Craigslist. Research your breeds. They're almost all dual-purpose birds.
In a way, yeah.
And I'm not gonna. Rarely do you eat a hen.
Right.
And in the city, you can't have roosters anyway. So I wouldn't worry about that. I would worry about how many eggs a year, what size eggs, what color eggs, and look for those sorts of traits, because you're not gonna eat your hens.
No. Yeah. Now we're here in Central Texas, and so all this information is going to be regional. Like what works in Maine is not going to work in Texas. We've got to have different birds.
That's true.
What do you recommend for this region for those that are right here?
I've had a lot of success with Americanas. One of my personal favorites, if you get what's called a straight run from the hatchery, which is a number of the birds will be male. And a number will be female. They don't sex them. They don't separate the roosters from the hens. You might go for something that the roosters you would be bigger, like a Brahma. Brahma is one of my favorite breeds. Big roosters, and nice hearty hens that lay lots of brown eggs.
Do you have any idea how many eggs in a year a Brahma hen is going to lay in this region? Is it?
easily over 200, 250. You know, the heat really suppresses everybody.
So let's say somebody has some experience already. I would recommend, if before you get into flipping chickens, that you have some experience raising them as a backyard flock.
Yeah, I would say, you know, get some grown chickens. Find somebody on Craigslist. Go to the the farm where they're selling the chickens and look for health. One thing that I'm very careful about is I never mix my personal flock with chickens that I might sell. So if they move from the nursery to my flock here, they're not for sale.
They're here, and you keep them separated for hygiene and health and possible contamination.
And some people be really funny about biosecurity, which is, it's understandable, but you want to get an idea of the farm and whether their birds look healthy. And feel, you know, ask questions. What are you feeding them? You know, have you had any problems? And that kind of stuff. And you know, it's, you know, some people don't even know that they have fowl pox or whatever, and you could very easily find yourself in a situation where you get a sick chicken.
So let's say somebody has had a backyard flock for a while and they're feeling pretty confident that they, you know they've got the coop and they've kind of got the situation set up. What would you recommend if they were going to go ahead and take the leap into becoming
become a chicken flipper?
A chicken flipper.
I would say look on Craigslist. Look and see what other people are selling.
Are there other chicken flippers out there?
There are other chicken flippers out there. Call them, ask questions. Maybe go buy a bird from another chicken flipper.
See their operation, how they're brooding, how they're raising up the teenagers, how they're marketing.
Yep. Check and find out if you need any kind of licensing.
That's a good point. You know, I'm one of those that doesn't usually pay attention to those things. So yes,
beg for forgiveness, not for permission.
Right.
In Texas, you need a poultry seller's certificate from the Animal Health Commission.
Right, and that's if you're going to transport them off farm to a
If
market.
you want to sell an animal off of your farm, anyone can come by and buy a chicken if I don't have a license. But if I'm going to sell it off of the farm at a flea market or a farmer's market or a chicken event, you know, like the coop shows.
The chicken roundup.
The Austin has a wonderful
We've been on that
tour.
Yeah, they have a tour of all these chicken coops.
Funky chicken coop tour.
Chicken coop tour. So you could sometimes take chickens and sell them on the tour.
Oh yeah. There's somebody in Corpus that organizes a tour like that, has contacted me and said, hey, you know, can you bring some chickens down? I'm like, it's a little far, but we'll check the date.
Right. Well, if the surf is up, right?
Right.
The surf is up in Corpus. That's ridiculous. But so you've got a license, and that really is a pretty simple thing, isn't it? Just paperwork.
It's paperwork. They do send somebody out to test your flock. They're actually great people. You know, I haven't had any trouble
with the state.
With the state, they're very friendly. I lost my license card at some point, and I just called them up, and they mailed me another one,
Nice.
or emailed me another one. And it's not expensive. If you have a flock of less than 100 birds, I think it's $50 or $75.
So I've always been a big fan of having multiple income streams, and obviously flipping chickens is not, you know, you're not getting rich off of that. Sounds like you're mostly making just a little bit, if breaking even, but you're collecting a bunch of your own eggs.
Oh yeah.
So you're getting that out of it. Plus you've got a network.
And we do sell eggs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's the other products out of it too. Then. Yeah. What would you recommend this to people to do as just an extra income stream? And would you?
I would. It's not incredibly difficult. It can be a lot of fun. You know,
although we're not confessing that to the audience.
Oh right.
It's not fun when it's working. But the rest of the time, it's a lot of fun.
It is a lot of fun. You meet some really interesting people, you know, who are really excited about chickens, who've just built their first chicken coop, and they're glowing when they come out here. And I get a lot of first egg emails.
Tell me what a first egg email is like.
It's somebody like, it usually starts with a thank you, but that they've invested all this effort,
And they're getting eggs.
and now they're actually getting eggs and making omelets, and they're generally good stories.
Nice. So what would you say to inspire somebody if they were interested in doing this? I mean, it really didn't take you that long to get up and running, like just really a year or two?
It took about a year, and it happened very organically, very naturally. Replenishing my own flock, trying out new breeds, and then you start ordering more chickens,
and then selling some,
and pretty soon a natural schedule developed, and the next thing I knew, it was a year-round activity of selling chickens, and it's, like I said, not that difficult. It's fun. You make a little bit extra money. It's another stream of revenue for the farm, and it's also one thing I really like about it is these animals are usually going to really good homes.
Nice.
It's I thought for a little while I wanted to sell meat goats, and then I had baby goats.
Oh,
And then I'm not going to sell meat goats. And these chickens are going somewhere where they're going to have happy, productive lives.
People really value them because they're producing eggs.
Yeah.
So we're outside of Austin, and the city of Austin is kind of progressive, but they actually have given you a bit of boost in your business, right?
A little boost, definitely. Yeah. The city has a program now where if you take a chicken class and buy a coop, they will give you a little rebate.
Yeah.
And
what is the city's motivation for that? Why does the city want you to have a chicken coop and chickens?
They're trying to get waste out of the landfill.
Oh.
And the compost. I mean, we do it here. We do it here all the time. In fact, this morning, the chickens got everything that was left over from last night's salad.
Right, all the scraps. They clean that up right away. So the city of Austin actually has a program where they're encouraging people to get laying flocks of chickens and building coops because they want people to feed the scraps from their food to their chickens so that it reduces the load onto the waste disposal system for the whole city. That is pretty smart.
Yeah, it's pretty cool, isn't it?
Yeah. There's an inspiration for you if you live near a city, and there's, Austin as a model, and go to your city planners and say, hey, we need to get this implemented. That's pretty.
We can get this stuff out of the landfill and into our yards and create some good natural fertilizer.
As well as some really delicious calories and nutrition for human bodies to be healthier. So the way your business is structured, this is kind of cool because, laying hens don't lay forever, right?
No.
Now, I tend to keep mine way too long. They hardly are producing anything, but I've fallen in love with them. But in general, people do switch out their flock, every couple of years?
A hen will lay well for a couple of years, and then she will slow down. She won't just stop, though.
Right. It's a thing where it tails off.
And at that age, it's you're probably not going to want to eat that chicken.
No, you usually have such an attachment to them.
But if
you know what? Those older hens, apparently the giblets from them are the most delicious. But we won't go there. So. Yeah. but really, so you have a natural thing. So you sold somebody a flock a few years ago, and they come back and they're like, wow, I had such a great experience with John. And are you getting people that are
well, a lot of people also, they start with a handful of birds. 6 months later, they decide to add a few more birds. Like tattoos, maybe.
Tattoos. Okay.
You just keep getting more of them.
How is a chicken like a tattoo?
You keep getting more of them. You can't stop. But also, sometimes predation.
Right, you lose some. Yeah, for sure.
Believe it or not, there's a thing called sudden chicken death.
Sudden chicken death.
Yeah.
SCD. I hadn't heard of that one.
A chicken will just die, and it's probably a heart failure or something like that.
Yeah. Things
happen. So people generally have to replace their birds before 2 years are up. We talked a little bit about red-tailed hawks.
Yeah.
You know, if your birds get to go outside, there's a good chance.
So you've
But-
got a lot of people that, for whatever reason, they have had a really good experience with you, and then
Right.
they need more chickens, and they come back. I guess at this point, now that you've been at it for a few years, you're much less dependent on Craigslist and mostly on your own set of referrals. Is that?
Generally, if unless I have a big surplus, I generally don't go to Craigslist. It's generally
Anymore.
referrals. Sometimes Facebook. You know, High Rock Ranch has a Facebook page. Funky Chicken Coop Tour. Even just going, you take your cards with you.
Hand them out.
In the course of discussion. Coworkers.
There you
You
go.
know, you hear somebody.
At the daytime job that's really sustaining you.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it does get easier. The marketing gets a lot easier as you go on.
It does.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it becomes somewhat natural. You know, you meet an organizer of a farmer's market, and you're like, well, you know, I sell chickens at farmers markets.
There you go, boy. Bingo. Plus, you can do your shopping.
Yeah.
Right there. Well, John, thank you so much. You're so awesome,
bet,
and
you
you're
bet.
just typical of all of the folks that are involved with the Grow Network, doing little, small, innovative things that make a big difference for all of us to be able to live sustainably. And in order to reach you, folks can either reach you inside at the Grow Network Lab site, where we've got you, of course, he's a member, and or your Facebook page is on High Rock Ranch.
High Rock Ranch in Red Rock, Texas.
And you're open to having people contact you if they either want a chicken and they're in this area, or if they would just like some help maybe or guidance in starting their own
Absolutely.
chicken flipping business. You'd be willing to help out?
I love to answer people's questions, and they can contact me if they want chickens or if they just want to say, how do I do this? How do I start?
Yeah, yeah. This is Marjorie Wildcraft, and I'll see you on another episode of TGN on the Road.